Strategies are not made every day. Improvements are. Any business idea or a project that you set out to do has an end goal which will be achieved only after some time. You don't achieve it from the get go, right from day one. It is through small and large improvements and changes that you make which lead to you achieving your business goal or a project's completion. It's amazing how some of the largest improvements can come from the smallest of changes, both in your personal and professional lives. From the relationships you maintain, to the way you perceive life and other people and the situations that you're in, to the methodologies that you uh, follow, to the projects that you pick up and how you prioritize them. The smallest of frameworks or the changes that you make can lead to the largest improvements, and that is something that I'm here to talk about. Hi, I'm Siddharth, and I'm a serial optimizer both at my personal and professional lives. Currently, I'm working as the marketing head for the Americas region for VW. I've been with VW for about 3 years. I joined as an individual contributor in product marketing, then eventually started taking care of product marketing and content marketing. Before VW, I worked at Freshworks for about a year, where I was taking care of marketing operations for Freshworks. During my stint there was when GDPR was coming to be. So I set up the marketing processes for us, for Freshworks, to be GDPR compliant. I was also running all the marketing campaigns on email, both one-time automated, and managing the marketing database for Freshworks. Before Freshworks, I worked for two internet companies, Shiksha.com and Sulekha.com, both in the classifieds B2C space. I worked as a performance marketer for both these organizations. Throughout my entire career, I have always been doing conversion-led optimization and experimentation. I'd like to tell you two stories from my professional journey where some of the smallest changes at two of the organizations that I've worked at led to a large increase in the number of leads that we generated, upwards of 150%. So let's dive right in with my first story about VW, where by making changes to three elements on the VW blogs led to an increase of monthly MQLs by 150%. VW has about 300 blogs written over the last 10 years. The more recent years have had more blogs going live, but the ones that were written in the past have been on the web for such a long time that they have a very solid SEO performance. We believe that by making some changes in the way the blogs are structured and how they are written, we should be able to improve the number of leads that are being generated month on month. So we set out to make changes. We had some hypotheses in place which we thought we'd test, and if they are successful, we'd make those changes on the website. The first hypothesis that we had that we wanted to test was that what if we add a hero section to each VW blog? Blogs are written focused on a certain keyword, and that keyword is related to our business. That means whoever is visiting the VW blog, directly or indirectly, is looking to solve certain problems in their business area, which VW can help solve for. So we thought that why not add a hero section where we give a very small or a quick product pitch. The hero section contained a title, a description, both one line each, and two CTAs to start a free trial and to know more about VW. We also added a few logos because the test that we did was on 33 e-commerce related blog pages. Now the logos that we added were some of our key or most famous e-commerce customers. We also showcased that VW is compliant to some of the most important internet laws from around the world. Clicking on the free trial button would open a modal where people can fill the form just with their email ID, professional email ID, and start using VW for free for 30 days. Clicking on the no more button would take the user to the corresponding page where the VW product is spoken about more in detail. Now, naturally, the previous version, that is the control, had some free trial buttons placed on the blog itself, like in the nav bar, some text CTAs in the content that is written, some banners through the content. In the variation, this hero section was added with the free trial and no more buttons. So we were comparing the cumulative clicks on free trial on the control versus the variation. We observed that there was a 68% increase in the number of clicks on free trial buttons on the variation against the control. We also saw that there was an infinite growth in the number of clicks on the no more button. Naturally, because the no more button was never there on the control. The second hypothesis that we wanted to test out was, what if we add contextual CTAs to a blog instead of generic start free trial or request demo CTAs on the nav bar? Like I mentioned, each VW blog is written on a focus keyword. And that focus keyword is what is covered in the blog itself. So adding a contextual CTA which ties back into the keyword and the content of the blog should be better and should receive more clicks. When we tested this out, we saw that there was a 3,400% increase in the number of clicks on the free trial CTA, which led to a 200%, upwards of 200% conversion rate increase. The third hypothesis we wanted to test was, how about updating content on blogs written over the years? The updation of content involved updating the information present on the blogs, getting the writing style more aligned to how we write now, and adding more free trial capturing CTAs within the content in the form of text-based CTAs and banners. Now this updated content was not separated as a test from the contextual nav bars, but we were able to measure the total number of clicks on all the links on the page, the free trial links also, and we were also able to measure the number of clicks received on the nav bar CTA. So we know for sure that updated content was also leading to an increase in improvement in performance, but we are not able to decide precisely by how much. Naturally, these were not the only 3 tests that we did. We did plenty of others, but these 3 were the successful ones and they really stood out. Once these tests were concluded, the next step was to deploy them. Deployment of the first 2 hypotheses that I mentioned was relatively easier than the third one. To deploy the first 2, we categorized the 300 blogs into 28 close categories. And for each of these categories, we defined the title, description, and the design for the hero section and the corresponding navbar CTA. Shipping this was fairly simple and straightforward. The third hypothesis, where updated content is to be shipped on the website, that is a fairly long project. It's in fact a massive one, and we are currently in the process of shipping them. From Jan to March, the period where we were doing the tests, you can see that there was an improvement in the performance in terms of conversion rate. The bars show the number of MQLs. The number of MQLs is confidential information, so I cannot share it here. But conversion rates I still can. The conversion rate was going up, which is represented by the dots and the lines. The number of MQLs was also going up. In March, the last week of March, the first phase of deployment was completed. And the numbers that you can see here in April is something that is still persistent even to this date. That means the changes that we made still continue to give us the good results. Now the changes that we made were actually really small. We added a hero section relevant to the blog. We added a navbar CTA, which was also relevant to the blog. These small changes have led to this sizable improvement in the performance of our blogs. And because the performance of the blogs on-page experience has improved, they're also performing better on search now, which means we are getting more traffic and operating at a higher conversion rate. The net number of MQLs has significantly gone up by about 150%. The second story I'd like to tell you about is from my performance marketing days at Shiksha.com from 2014-2016. We made one small fix and one change in the landing page design that led to increasing our leads by 160% and eventually operating at 66% cost per acquisition. This story is about landing page optimization through experimentation for Google search ads. Shiksha.com is the college research website for colleges in India. A strategy that we followed was that on the day of a competitive examination, since the search queries for that competitive exam and its analysis, and on days when results are declared, the search queries really shoot up. And when search queries shoot up, the cost per click of those ads can reduce. So we are focusing only on these event specific days to run our Google ads. Now, this was my first stint in marketing. It was my first marketing job. I entered the organization and I used to hear in conversations that our mobile landing pages are not very good. They operate at 0.02% conversion rate. Based on this fact, we used to give a minus 100% bid multiplier for mobile ads. That means our bid for mobile ads would be zero, which would imply that our ads would just not be served on mobile. After having spent 5-6 months in the function and getting more confidence in my knowledge about the domain, I asked my manager whether I could do a test myself of running an ad on desktop as well as mobile and see this with my own eyes that the conversion rate on mobile is definitely lower. My manager gave me his approval. I designed the landing page very well. It was quite good looking. The form was working well. On the day of the campaign, I started the campaign. Around 7 p.m., the campaign went live, and I went back home. Uh, I was chatting with my manager, looking at the numbers, excited about my first experiment. And on the Google Ads platform, I observed the same trend. On desktop, our conversion rate was about 8%, while on mobile, it was 0.02%. I was really surprised. Chatting with my manager on phone, I told him that I think something is wrong. Tomorrow, when we get back to office, let's look at the backend numbers. Next day, when we got to office, we saw in the backend that the number of leads that we received from desktop was somewhere around 450, and the number of leads we received from mobile was 650. The number of leads from mobile was significantly higher than those we got from desktop. This is when we realized that the Google conversion pixel was not correctly placed for mobile. In another such occasion, when we tested this out again with the Google conversion pixel placed correctly, we observed that the conversion rate on mobile was actually much more than that on desktop. Desktop was 8% conversion rate and mobile was 12% conversion rate. Now, this was the early days of mobile in India in 2014. Businesses were still figuring out how to utilize mobile in the best possible way, which meant that there was less competition on search queries. Whatever bids that you set out would be quite low and you could achieve low cost per click. This also meant that the cost per click that we were getting on mobile was much lesser than that on desktop. At an overall level, we were able to reduce our cost per acquisition significantly. This was the first time that we were able to hit our targets much more. We were able to hit much more than our targets. And the first year that Shiksha.com did not run a TV advertisement. The second hypothesis at Shiksha.com that I wanted to test was to design new age landing pages. We already had an inbuilt infrastructure where we could create a landing page for any search query. So every campaign in the Google Ads account with an ad group would contain a dedicated landing page. The landing pages looked very old school. On the left side of the page, there would be a generic stock photo of a college or college students with a title and 4 reasons why you should look at Shiksha.com. And on the right side, we would give a title which would be corresponding to the ad group and 4 form fields. I felt that this was very old school. Now, Shiksha.com is a classifieds website. We had listings of institutes. There were listing pages and there were institute pages. What my hypothesis was that if we show a modal-based landing page with the institute page or institute category, region, course category listing page with a modal on top, and in such a way that the listing page or the institute page can be scrolled to, the conversion rate would be a little higher. This is typically the fundamental used on Shiksha.com to, when you click on the login button, a modal would pop up. So I discussed this with my manager and I really remember these words that he said that I don't see a reason why this will not work. So we decided to test it out. When we ran this test, we saw that the conversion rate on the page was 10% higher. This is only for desktop. The conversion rate on desktop was 10% higher. The secondary goal was cost per acquisition. Cost per acquisition should not go down, should not go up. Naturally, if conversion rate is going up, cost per acquisition will go down. So a 10% increase in conversion rate meant a 10% reduction in cost per acquisition. Based on the results of this test, we went on to update the infrastructure that we had for landing page creation. It was more or less a UI design change, migrating from the old school design to newer modal based landing pages. Once this was done, because it was tested, we went on creating new landing pages for every other landing page that existed in our entire ad group or entire AdWords account. With these two hypotheses tested successfully, we unlocked mobile advertising for Shiksha.com, and we also improved the performance of our desktop landing pages. As I mentioned, we unlocked mobile advertising at a time when mobile advertising was actually really cheap in India. The cost per click was very low, and the search queries were definitely higher than desktop. Conversion rates were also higher. So in my first year at Shiksha.com, we were able to achieve about 100,000 leads that entire financial year. In my second year at Shiksha.com, we increased our leads from 100,000 the previous year to 260,000. Our target was 250,000, which was also set very high, but we were able to achieve it. At the same time, we were able to bring down the cost for every lead that we generated from about $2.4 that time to about $1.6, which was a reduction of about 33%, one-third reduction in cost. As I mentioned, this was the first year in Shiksha.com's decade-long history that we did not have to run a TV advertisement to achieve our lead generation goals, which also meant that we were able to save a lot of our marketing budget, which was carry forward to the next year for our marketing efforts. To conclude, besides the fact that some really small changes can lead to very large improvements in both your personal and professional lives, I would also like to add a couple of pointers which I use in my professional and personal journey. The first being that the deeper you go, the more solutions will become evident and they'll start coming to surface. As you understand a function or a field more, the deeper you go into it, you get so much clarity about that function or that field that you find solutions quickly and very easily. The same solutions for one field that you've really explored and understood in depth are applicable to other functions as well, because the fundamentals are really similar. Another way of life that I follow is that I do a large volume of work. When, however small or large each work item may be, I don't go, to achieve 100% perfection, because that is a never-ending task. Because whenever you reach a point where you thought the goal would be, the goal also shifts. So I would recommend doing a lot of volume of work and avoiding the perfectionist trap. An example I love to quote here is Vincent van Gogh's story. We barely know 2 or 3 of his paintings, but when you visit the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, you will realize that in the short span of his artistic journey of about 4 or 5 years, he made 800 paintings. That is a large volume of work to have done in such a small time, which is why he was able to create those 2 or 3 masterpieces that we remember and appreciate even after decades have gone by. Another thing that another methodology or way of working that I follow is that I spend 50% bandwidth in improving what's already live and 50% bandwidth on shipping new things. Because when you ship new things, it takes some time for them to start having an effect. In that period, while the new things are still getting some impact and making a change in your business or goals or projects, the things that you did in the past have already reached this point where they have started giving the results. So if you look at them and try to make them better, the impact and the outcome will be much higher. Thank you for joining in. I hope you had some solid takeaways from this small talk. Um, I would love to discuss more things in detail. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Siddhartha Kathpalia. See you.